This video is about a better way to leverage LLMs than AI agents. AI agents are all the craze right now in terms of there's a lot of big names talking about them, whole companies moving their focus like Salesforce to being like, we're an AI agent company, and lots of big proclamations about 2025 being the year of AI agents. It might be, but I don't think in the ways that people want it to be. Only in kind of a surface level way. It really should not be if we're actually trying to solve real world problems, which is what I'm going to talk about in this video, about how to leverage LLMs to solve real world problems. And sometimes that means in AI agents, but there's a better way to go about doing things. And I've got quite a few reference links that I'll put in the description below, especially the one Anthropic made a really good article recently about building effective agents, although I think that they miss some key pieces there, and there's a specific kind of bias towards getting people to use their services. So first, let's look up definitions of AI agents. There is not one single definition, so that already kind of is a bit of a red flag, which means we need to kind of step away from like words like agentic and AI agents as something that we use frequently, or that we use to really define our businesses, our own practices, or the tools that we use, because it's incredibly unclear, and it's almost a marketing tactic. Just like a year ago or 2 years ago, basically the last 1 to 2 years, putting AI in your product names or product description is basically marketing. I mean, I can't tell you, saw this commercial the other day for like, an AI will do this for you, and it's like, no, it can't do that. But it was selling it, and I could see how somebody who doesn't study AI would be fooled by that. So powered by AI is not going to be powered by AI agents. It's essentially marketing speak. And I don't like that. I want to be really practical here and help businesses and people solve real world problems. So Anthropic's definition, and they make the distinction between workflows and agents, which I'm going to circle back around to and cover some aspects of this article that are very relevant. And because there's a lot of good things they say in here, and again, a lot of misses. And then here, agents are systems where LLMs dynamically direct their own processes and tool usage, maintaining control over how they accomplish tasks. One of the main issues here is that these are kind of the same thing. They are essentially the same thing, and there's a lot of setups that really there's no difference, and if you build it correctly, as I talk about towards the end, the right way to do this, the better way, then these distinctions don't really matter. I heard somebody else call it an agent memory tools and the ability to collaborate with other agents. I believe that there's in here like an LLM on a loop. Typically when you see their chart down below, they put an LLM on a loop. And I don't like that definition. Here's my definition, which is what I think a lot of people, what I think is useful. An AI agent has chat, and it makes decisions, and it takes actions. And there's in order to have LLMs, in order to have chat and decisions, you need LLMs. And I could see potentially even just chat or just decisions being considered an agent. You don't necessarily need actions. I don't think you need memory. I don't think you need tools to kind of meet a threshold of AI agents. Let's jump into the why we see a lot of people predicting the 2025 is going to be the year of AI agents. There's just so much groupthink going on, especially in Silicon Valley, especially when there's a significant bias that to some extent is reasonable, but that is taken way too far, where some of these big players in AI that have made the progress recently, that are predicting things that are outside of the progress that they have been making, but it's not obvious to those who are not real close to the technology that it's outside of that. That they're taking their predictions extremely seriously. I can't tell how much content is there, like just about hints of what Sam Altman says or suggests. Well, this newsflash, Sam Altman has a very reasonable chance that he does not know what's coming next in a lot of ways. He knows what's coming next in his company, and they have made one really big bet that has worked out really well. But beyond that, they have, in my opinion, they have not shown too much forward thinking. I think that the latest thing with the test time compute has been pretty good, but at the same time, that's 2-year-old technology, which is chain of thought. So I wouldn't really say that's like, oh my God, they came up with something really amazing, and they coined it. But I think that what you see is when words come out of his mouth, they percolate through Silicon Valley, through top tier people. They essentially internalize that as truth, and they hear it often enough. It's kind of what politicians do. When they hear it often enough, it becomes true. And other big companies, people well respected in their fields, take that as truth and amplify it in their own particular way. For example, like sales, the Salesforce, or what NVIDIA is saying. All these things are based upon people who are, in my opinion, especially like NVIDIA, talking outside of his expertise. And a lot of the stuff we hear is for the benefit of these major players, especially the foundation model companies like OpenAI and Anthropic. A lot of the stuff that comes out of them, that I'm talking about AI agents, is something that helps support their future progress for people to believe that that's true. And then there's a lot of VCs doing a lot of hand waving. Part of it is to sell, to grow their fund, so they get people to invest in their fund. And another part of it is maybe a little bit of self-convincing to what bets that they want to make. And when there's top tier VC firms that are saying AI agents, AI agents, AI agents, and they're making huge bets on companies that are going into AI agents, then that tends to, there's a lot of follow-on type of thought process going on there. But really, one of the biggest issues with thinking about the year of agents is being like, this is like the next thing that's coming, which I'm not saying that there isn't going to be progress in AI agents. That's definitely not what I'm saying. I think that there should be, and there will be, progress in AI agents, but it's not really going to be the source of the majority of the value that's created with LLMs. And I'm going to talk about that at the end when I talk about the better way to do it, because it's just an extension on the chat perspective. It's a little bit, to me, like somebody invented the 4-wheel car, and then VCs the next year came out and goes, okay, this is the year of the 6-wheeled car. 6 wheels are better than 4, which is, not true, except in some circumstances, like with rigs. But generally, imagine all the car companies going, oh my God, we can put 6 wheels on something, just because it's a natural, logical extension of where the technology could go. And there's a whole bunch of other silly examples that I could give on technology that's like this, and then kind of the natural linear progression being not where it went. And that's what I think will happen with AI. There's a major point here. Let's see, something about, consistently the most successful implementations weren't using complex frameworks. And I think that this is not something that they can reasonably say. And I think that this is kind of a loaded thing to say that supports you leaning harder on them to solve your problems versus trying to solve your own problems. I have found actually the more complex, it appears complex on the surface, but what you end up doing is you break the problems into smaller and smaller pieces and solve them better and better. And that actually ends up giving you more business value, largely because you get more reliability. So I think this idea of, it's just put something simple in there. It's an LM on a loop with tools and memory. That's the architecture that we should have. And you're essentially leaning really hard on the models, the LLMs themselves, to do your work for you, and having really good prompts, and that's about it. I don't think that's the way to success here, except with trivial problems. Essentially, the more challenging, the more valuable, the more useful, the more unique a problem is, the more you're going to want to break it up into smaller pieces, and it can appear complex. That doesn't necessarily mean it is complex. So there's complexity versus simplicity. Sometimes you can have a lot of steps and it's kind of be simple, but somebody else might call it complex. So playing a little bit of semantics there. I heard somebody say, the more complex it is, the more tokens you use. Absolutely not, because when you break it up into smaller pieces, you can actually use smaller models, and maybe use more tokens, but the cost is definitely less and the speed is higher. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have more token usage, because you might have to feed it a lot more data with a very simple solution, versus if you can pick it apart, you can feed it the most relevant data. But back to what I pointed out to before, I think this is a huge reason why a lot of the businesses aren't implementing AI, because it's not reliable. When you take an LLM and you put it on a loop, even with a lot of sources and a lot of like massaging of it, it goes off the rails really easily. And it's really hard to get it back off the rails, where it just kind of goes off into la la land and it builds off of that and it kind of paints itself into a corner. That is and will continue to be a challenge with these very simple architectures. And I think that saying, just because it's saying, hey, we tried some complex things and they didn't work as good as the simple things, doesn't mean that there wasn't a better complex thing out there. And it's possible that there's a distinct avenue or whole area of complexity that they don't explore because they don't think it will work, that could work for them. Okay, so one of the predictions from a major VC was that it was weird for him to say this. I think it was more about his investing activity. He was saying 2024 was the year of agents, which doesn't make sense except for they invested in a lot of agents, and he thinks 2025 is the year of the swarm of agents swarm, which is essentially a multi-agent architecture. And I've heard somebody say this is more efficient and this is better in a lot of ways, and to me that's just really, really bad. First of all, you end up doing extra LLM calls. When you add things up, you have to do extra. There's extra cost. There's extra slowdown. There's less reliability, and there's there's a distinct issue here, and I think this is kind of an artifact of where software development has gone and how things are being broken up into smaller pieces, and they're being very modularized, which is useful in a lot of ways, but it also seems to have created these architectures that have these very hard walls around them, and this creates serious limitations, and it essentially makes software very similar to just doing like a no-code, low-code type of solution, which if you've coded before with like Python or something and you've tried to create something similar with like a no-code, low-code, you realize that there's a certain set of things you just can't do that make it so that you can't solve complex things. I think a way to think about this actually being useful would be like, have you ever tried to create a story? It's more like stories with somebody. Go to somebody and say, okay, I'm going to say a word, you say a word, let's create a story. It gets really messed up really fast. Or let me just put it, it's very challenging and hilarious because it's funky. That's kind of what you're expecting with the multi-agent architectures. To some extent, this is similar to the microservices architecture that Amazon pioneered 20-ish years ago. That is useful in certain ways, and so I do think that there are some aspects of multi-agent architectures that's useful, but I think this is kind of beside the point and not really where it's not just like all AI is going to converge on this 1 billion agents like a lot of people predict. I think that's not very realistic. I think that there are going to be large amounts of agents and AI systems talking to each other. That's going to happen a lot, but it's not necessarily just going to be a bunch of agents. What is better is weaving things in, taking these hard walls and making them not so hard, making them soft and squishy and overlapping different aspects of the system. And we'll come in contact with that. Talk about that a little bit in this last major bullet that we're about to get to. There's another aspect of this, which is tool use, and I think I could shoot a whole video on tool use and show how to do it better. Because part of the problem here is that this is a very LLM-centric, flawed perspective, basically. You're looking at it as the LLM is the decision maker, as if you're giving it, you're anthropomorphizing, I guess Anthropic anthropomorphizing makes sense, the LLM, and so therefore you're giving it tools. But really, it should be the other way around. The system uses LLMs as tools, and the LLM does not use like code as tools. It's more like code uses LLMs as tools. That's a much better way to go about doing things. But also, there is a better way. If you are going to use tools, there's a better way to do it. And I should put a comment below if you want me to shoot how to do that, because it really. If you run into any issues using tools, which like very simple examples, like I say, don't use tools, but with certain simple examples, tools are fine. and they can work for you. But if you have any issues with it, there's a better way to do it, which essentially involves weaving the tools into the system a bit more in a bit more interconnected way. And then also you can give examples for how to use the tools. There you can put kind of the tool usage. It's not quite like this, but it's within the prompt itself, but then with examples, and you can weave it in with other aspects of the problems you're trying to solve. And that dramatically enhances the ability of the LLMs to essentially connect and integrate with software. All right, so what's better than AI agents? Without further ado, first of all, reliability is paramount. This is so important and so overlooked. So we've got the workflow versus agents here. I'll let you read that, and let's. I'm going to scan down to just a few. So first of all, they do say that one thing I really like here. However, they often create extra layers of abstraction and obscure. This is 100% true, and I've been saying this, and this is why I've stopped using LangChain like a year and a half ago and some of these other ones, because yeah, while you can get an AI agent up really quickly, there's not really anywhere to go from there. It's very challenging to kind of debug it. They recommend just calling LLM APIs directly. I completely agree with that. It supports their business model, but I think that they're absolutely correct for that. Okay, so I think when you look at all of these things, it's all one thing, basically. So this is a workflow in LLM. Actually, this is I think that this is an agent in their definition, or augmented LLM. It's a little bit unclear if that's part of the challenge here. You could just kind of change some of these words a little bit, or even just squint at these a little bit, and it is essentially an agent. So there's a workflow prompt chaining. We're just going to go through these really quickly. Workflow routing, parallelization, orchestrator, evaluator, optimizer. This is probably the closest one that is almost exactly like an AI agent architecture. So if you go AI agent, how is this different? They swap environment for an LLM, and then also there's a human. So I think this is basically chat is part of the agent experience. Okay. And then an LLM on a loop, which is not very useful, but that's not really that different. And really you can think, why wouldn't you also in this potentially bolt on something like this or something like this? There's no reason you can't or shouldn't. And in a lot of cases, I think that it makes for superior systems. You can solve more complex problems. Yeah, you can have something real simple like this, but you better, maybe you have a very simple problem to solve. So to me, the better way to think about it is what I would call AI-powered software. And I think a lot of these distinctions, to be fair, this is a new industry with new things, and people are coming up with their own verbiage. And, I think there's a lot of fake-sounding distinctions to sell a product, essentially. But agents, workflows, chatbots, etc., are all subsets of AI-powered software. So you can all think of them as one thing. That really simplifies things. You don't need to worry about it being an AI agent, except from a marketing standpoint. You just need to build software where you weave things in, and you use LLMs as tools within software. You break the solutions, the problems down to smaller bits and pieces, and you don't worry about whether or not it's defined. And then you make it with actual code, instead of like no code type things, to where they can interact. And this is another reason not to use like LangChain, because there's a lot of decisions and knobs and dials essentially that they choose for you that you can't really see very easily, and it's not always the right knob and dial setting that should be for your situation. But also there's several steps in the process, and let's say there's 4 steps that they do for you. Sometimes you need to grab something in midway and change what it does, or alter some aspect of it. Well, if you can't actually reach inside of there, then you basically have to build it yourself. And I think that's what a lot of these better solutions will end up being. And in my opinion, in the 2025, just building AI-powered software for specific use cases in this way is where the progress is really going to come from. It's not going to be as sexy as somebody who can build this really simple system and do these cool things and roll them up with these crew AI, with these multi-agent architectures. It sounds fun and it's interesting, But really, when it comes down to practical real world use cases, it's less reliable, it's more expensive, and it's slower. Why would you do that? Why? When you can, especially because of how important reliability is, if you are in a business that needs a reliable result, leveraging AI agents with a very simple architecture, good luck to you. I think that you're going to be a lot better off picking the problem apart and doing a lot of what I say in this video. So let me know what you think. Please like if you like content like this, and subscribe for more awesome real world, practical, counterintuitive. I'm not trying to go along with the flow, but I'm not trying to go against the flow. I'm just trying to look at what our clients are saying, what our actual R&D is showing, what our work with our clients points towards in terms of actually solving real world problems. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great day. Bye.